Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the Union Rare Battles hosted by CoreTCG. My name is Cosmic, one of your hosts, and today I'm joined by T-Mac. T-Mac, how are we feeling today about these matches?
I am super excited. I can't wait for a good day of Union Arena gameplay. It's always a pleasure to be here on the commentary desk.
Absolutely. And for those that might be unfamiliar with the format, we are going to be seeing a lot of IP versus IP battles. These rare battles are meant to be going against Demon Slayer versus Demon Slayer, Code Geass versus Code Geass for that ultimate prize card at the top end of that nice rainbow foil finish, and also that winner stamped card, which just really shines well. You know, myself being a huge JJK fan, I love those winner UGs. But T-Mac, what's been your favorite series so far?
Honestly, I've been really enjoying One Punch Man. I didn't think I was gonna enjoy it that much. Everybody who I know knows like I like JJK as well, but One Punch has been super fun. It's brought a lot of like spice into the meta, so I definitely can't wait to see those rare battles for sure today.
Yeah, again, I definitely agree as well with One Punch Man just being such a well-designed set. I think that was really the biggest thing that surprised us. I gotta give a shout out to my man Boros. I'm gonna keep hyping up that card. Giving red decks access to something that can take a card from your life for such advantage is just a piece I think a lot of aggro decks were missing, and also creates this like really nice skill intensive element with various aggro decks. Like if you're going in the mirror match, like can I afford to play this Boros? Is it just going to be the double energy? It's just really exciting to see how that's kind of shaped up and played out. But today, for our first match, it sounds like we're going to be leading it off with Demon Slayer. Now, I know Tanjiro, Nezuko, right, being the staple of the format, being kind of the all-stars of just the open meta. But when it comes down to the rare battles, how do you think the format changes? Like, is there a specific deck that you think you really like to come out ahead today in the matchup?
Yeah, so 100% in these rare battles, it changes up a lot of things. Decks that you usually wouldn't see in the meta definitely come to the forefront, and one of them being one of my personal favorite decks is the wives and siblings deck. So using that Tengen there, being able to get that double attack, and in that same tandem, the other deck that comes to shine in these rare battle formats is the three amigos, I believe that is the community name for them, with the Tanjiro and company deck. That deck also has some really high damage output. If you can get that Zenitsu online early and get that double damage in, that deck can easily sweep and run away with the competition. So it's going to be very interesting to see how people pilot. And honestly, we can't count out Muzan because even though
Yep.
it is set one, Muzan on a really good pilot can definitely sneak in there and steal some games.
Muzan is definitely, I think, a big one for me as well, especially in this format where unless the Tanjiro Nezuko can really get the high roll and run away with it, we have seen quite a few blockers that can just gum up the board and give you time to stabilize to that Muzan. And then it's a 5K attacker with damage to impact to like he does it all at that point once he comes online. Now, you do need to spend a little time to invest, right? It does have that criteria of getting 20 cards to get built
Mhm.
up to be able to move him to the front line. But yeah, it's definitely one that, you know, we are seeing some of that kind of payoff element happen in One Punch Man with the green Saitama deck. So for me personally, I love those like self-mill strategies that
Mhm.
really come together for the big payoff. Like you're slowly building up your sideline to say like, hey, I'm getting there. You have like two more turns and then my engine comes online. And it's been really exciting to see. So, you know, some of the other ones that we can talk about really quickly, I believe we're going to have Bleach for round two. And again, these are just some initial notes we have. Things might get moved around a little bit, but, you know, Bleach, I think a lot of people, again, are going to go to either just the purple 4K rush strategy or just having Ichigo just being a value remover plus raid option is always just so good, right? Anytime that you have your four specials plus four extra removals, I definitely think purple in that sense gets a stand ahead of others. And of course, the Renji you can rely on as well. But, you know, some of the other decks, right? Which one is kind of another deck that you're looking forward to seeing out of Bleach?
Oh, I'm super excited to talk about this one. You know, I love my baby Unohana. I've been on that and preaching that deck, mixing it with the Toshi engine, being able to stun in these rare battle formats, just like I said earlier, like being able to get that surprise factor. And I think people are not going to be expecting people to bring Toshi. Toshi just being able to stun one body and stun back row is just super taxing, especially to these Ichigo decks. Like if you can get the ball rolling early, get that early Unohana out and bring up those Toshiros, bring out those Kenpachis that can't be EP reduced, you can get some insane board states that your opponent just can't deal with. We know a lot of people have popularized Toshi Rush. There is also another deck, Stern Ritter Rush, that not a lot of people play and is very under the radar, but definitely can come and steal some games. I mean, being able to say, I'm a 5K double damage, or if you trigger anything, I get to basically draw 2 trash 1 is just so much value. So like that can also come in and sneak into the top half of these rare battles. So I think that's the thing I like with these rare battle formats. It creates like creativity when it comes to deck building. Like you have to like know what you're playing against and have to like kind of pivot and change up your strategy. It's not like when you're going against everything where it's just like, oh, you know the meta decks and you know what you're playing against. You gotta come with that spice. And that's why I love these rare battles so much.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the biggest part of it, right? I think that's something we haven't seen too much of just yet, unless you've been playing in multiple rare battles. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you do want to build your deck slightly differently if you're playing in more of a open format versus the rare battles where you're knowing that you're only going to run into, for example, other bleach style of decks. So that has created some more interesting lists that we've seen, back when we had the other rare battles a few months ago. At this point, depending on when the set released and whatnot, and then even looking at some pieces from the Japan meta that we've seen going all the way back, especially in Bleach, like green was the breakaway color that put up a surprising amount of numbers that a lot of people maybe wrote off at the time, but in its own format, green Bleach is still very, very strong. So we did
Mhm.
talk about One Punch Man, maybe just a little bit in passing before. We're going to say that for the end, but Code Geass being another big one. And it sounds like we have the most people for Code Geass today, definitely being a surprise for me. I really expected One Punch Man being the new set would have the most people, really signed up and being excited for it. But T-Mac, tell us what's your favorite kind of go-to pick for Code Geass. I'll let you kick off this one.
You want my biased or unbiased opinion? Because the biased opinion is obviously going to go to Lancelot. I love that deck so much. Green decks are just my specialty, and like Lancelot just being a double damage impact, being able to take out a 5K just easily. 8 energy is very taxing, but you can get over that hurdle by turn 3, turn 4, no problem. I think that deck is definitely going to be the deck to go into this rare battle format. But we have to talk about probably the best deck, not only in UA in general, but in these rare battles, is going to be that Perp CG. Just so much value. Like before we started the stream, I was talking about it. Like being able to just say, hey, minus 1K to something, and then pop a 3K and just constantly keep removing and dealing with your opponent's board is just super gross.
Yep.
Definitely going to be the one to beat in this rare battle format. But like I said,
I
the
think we
bias
might see that, but sorry to cut you off
yeah.
real quick. It sounds like our match is ready. So it sounds
Oh,
like we're going to
let's
be
go.
diving right in with Demon Slayer. So we'll get that set up here. And it sounds like we're going to be taking away. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the yellow versus yellow mirror match that I know a lot of people probably played at locals? Are we going to see something a little bit more lively? I'm very curious to see what our players are going to shuffle up and bring today. So while they're shuffling up, as I just mentioned, so
Mhm.
yeah, again, I got to give my vote for yellow Demon Slayer. Again, the Tanjiro Nezuko combo just being really fun. But the one we didn't talk about was the yellow Hashiras. I know that's one that surprised quite a few people. A little bit slower to get ramped up, but has some really strong control elements maybe baked into it. So with the Hashiras, do you think we might see some of that today, T-Mac, or are we going to be limited to just the Tanjiro Nezuko, mirror matches? I do see 2 yellow sleeves, it looks like, so it might be yellow on yellow right off the bat.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be yellow on yellow. I do like what Hashira is trying to do, but it just falls a little bit short. Not having like the good raid targets like other decks have. That is one of the things that I know locally that we were talking about. That makes Hashira so strong is the units are good, but not good enough. Like let's say for example a Tanjiro Nezuko that just can do those multi attack swings and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to. I think we're just going to see a lot of Tanjiro Nezuko's shenanigans today, and those yellow sleeves are an indicator for that 100%.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little bit guilty of that too, but unless I just have like the box of bulk sleeves, laying around, I'm shuffling up a bunch of decks. I do like color coding a little bit. Just one helps me find it
Mhm.
easier when I'm, digging through my deck boxes. But also like the yellow border, if you find like the right yellow matching sleeves, they really pop quite well. So looks
Mhm.
like we are having a fist bump across the table and digging into here. Frankie on the left side, well, that is definitely Tanjiro and Nezuko, and we have Jeffrey on the right, which is
I believe
Tanjiro
we're.
Nezuko. All right, like we
Let's
call.
go right out
Like
the
we
right
called
out
it.
the bat, right out the bat. So yeah, in this matchup, it's very key. Like you have to see your Nezuko's. Nezuko is going to be what like pretty much anytime you play this deck, you have to see your Nezuko's. If you don't see your Nezuko's early and you're not seeing your Tanjiros on top of it, it's going to be a very difficult battle. Like if one player sees it and one player doesn't, it's pretty much turn 3, turn 4, and then we're on to the next round. So it's going to be interesting to see if we can get a good game here because as you know when like in Japan when we were watching the finals we didn't actually get to see a game
Yep.
but hopefully we get to see a game with these two here. So I'm looking forward to it.
And what's really interesting, again, going back to the rare battles, there's a 4 energy 2 action point Tanjiro, which is also the
Mhm,
color trigger, so it's very strong, but it has a enter the battlefield minus something 3K, right? And
mhm,
against the Yellow Demon Slayer decks, that can actually hit a surprising amount of cards. However, that Nezuko that we're putting such a high importance on, it is a 3,500 baked in. So you do have to combo a couple cards together if you really want to move it, depending on if they're playing like the 1 energy Nezuko that can shrink something down, or I believe that's a 2 energy one, sorry. And then combo into it, right? There's a couple
mhm.
extra stages that you have to do, but can be really strong if you're able to turn the corner and take out their Nezuko.
So question for you, Cosmic. In this scenario here, uh, like what do you think going first or second has the advantage in this matchup? Because normally when I play this matchup, I like to go probably first or second. I like to go second just to get that extra energy. I get that extra draw, and I can turbo a little bit faster. But talk to me, like what's your opinion on that?
I am guilty of always wanting to be the aggressor and just starting on that first turn. Because if I end up with like a hand that's like very zero heavy, right, and we have to rely on maybe some of the step cards again, depends on the list a little bit. If you have the steps to move them back, like the Murata, which is the 0 step, and then I know one of the Tanjiros has it as well, right? If I have those,
Mhm,
I want to go first. I want to get the extra couple points of chip damage in where possible, because sometimes there will just be hands where it's like, well, I am all aggressive, and this is what I have to work with.
mhm. I agree with you on that point. There are definitely those hands where it's just like I just want to zoom. I just want to do
Yep.
the full like total concentration breathing, go and it's just ask my opponent, do you have the response or no? So I definitely can agree with you on that. So yeah, I'm super like I'm really excited to see like just if the back and forth because this matchup is definitely going to be a back and forth, and I can't wait to see how we go into that.
Yep, and that 2 energies Zenitsu that Jeffrey played at the back line is really important because we're able to find the Nezuko, right? We put such a high importance on it. It is a 2,500 body, which can block somewhat decently if they get like that early 0 energy 2K rush line. It's also a draw trigger, which is also very nice. Just getting more cards in my hand. Love to see it. But he did find the Nezuko, discard another 0 he didn't need. And we were just talking about the Tanjiros that can come into play and kind of gum up the board a little bit. And he does have the Tanjiro going to the front line, which is going to have the ability with its step trigger to go back when he needs it. So we are setting up quite well on the right hand side there.
Yeah, it's very interesting though. Frankie deciding to push up that Nezuko super early without setting up that Tanjiro attacker. And this is just asking for a removal from on the side of Jeffrey here because like when I say the Nezuko is super important to this strategy and just putting it up there just to eat a special is going to be quite rough in the late game, I think.
Yeah, I always, to that point, love being able to hold the Nezuko until I know that it's going to be good for an extra point of damage or two. Again, looking at their hand, it looks like they're playing the higher end of yellow that you can lean into. So definitely some more control pieces. So maybe just want to have a 3,500 blocker. So again, saving ourselves a point of damage against the 3K Tanjiro, which would then force our opponent to push up another card if they want to get a point of damage. So based on the rest of the hand, I definitely get it. But to your point, it's going to feel super bad if we see a removal here from the right side and just taking care of our only good proactive threat on the board so far.
Hmm.
So another Nezuko going to the back line again. We're getting to that 4 energy, which is the safe spot, as it were. Looks like we're choosing between the starter deck Tanjiro, which does go up to 4,500. Makes itself a very nice blocker for a turn and can cut off damage. And then we do see another. I think that looks like the final trigger in their hand to extend out their turn if they really wanted to.
But deciding to go a little bit more safer, and it looks like going into a Nezuko of his own. So he's looking to retaliate and just say, "Hey, you push that Nezuko up, I got a Nezuko for you." And now deciding on that one cost one if he wants to do the swap through with that Nezuko to get in some more damage. potentially having 3 attackers on this swing.
Yep, and I definitely love putting the other Tanjiro to the front, right? Because we need to swap one of them back. Lets us get either a blocker if we want to save it that way, or if we want to bring up one of our other zeros or ones to be more aggressive, right? There's quite a few different ways to line up attacks depending on how much you want to commit and potentially, save one of the raid fodders for later, maybe with the energy Nezuko. Nope, he is going to bring it to the front line at the start of the battle. So we are just going to we're going swinging. We're going to see what's available.
Ooh, and hitting that raid trigger, I believe that is the starter deck Tanjiro, so boosting up to 4,500 and being able to block there, but still going to get in 1 damage though, and that looks like a just the regular Obanai. I believe that was the draw trigger Obanai. So, and then it's just going to pass it back over. Honestly, not a bad. That was a very interesting play because he was able to push up that Nezuko and still had the Tanjiro, so he was able to get at least 3 swings in, but just unfortunate hitting that raid triggered Tanjiro, so saving a point of damage from the side of Frankie.
Yeah, as we were just mentioning, like just having that big body protection can do a lot, and then also sets up for losing out the impact side of it, but still able to save us a point of damage here. And what really matters in kind of this crashing back and forth. So this is where we do start to see, right? We talked about just being aggressive, getting the early lines and early damage, try to force that tempo very early game that says, hey, you have to have a removal if you want to cut off my Nezuko lines, or you just really have to spend a couple action points on your turn to try to catch back up. And a lot of times, if you don't have the final card in your hand, so total concentration breathing for Demon Slayer, right? It can be very hard to only get to play 2 cards and have to burn a special, right? If your opponent is able to then establish a board with multi-attackers on the backswing, it can be quite taxing and very threatening, but it looks like we do have the special in his hand.
So yeah, this is probably going to remove the Nezuko here on the side of Jeffrey. But here we see the 3-1. He placed a 3-1 Tanjiro, so getting that Nezuko to the front line. So if he has another Nezuko in hand, now he can raid. And this is probably okay. So he doesn't have it, but if he did have it, he could do the full 5 damage combo. I should say. But still being able to get a raid here. So this is going to be an impact swing going in and hitting the raid Tanjiro. Oof. Raid for raid, but I don't think he has enough energy to do that. So here, this is going to be the Nezuko swing, which is going to swap out this Tanjiro more than likely.
So yep, at this point, just getting an extra attacker, right? Taxing their board. The Nezuko on his turn is smaller, so even a 2K is looking to potentially help push a card or push a damage. And I guess technically making it a 3K, right? Let's not forget the energy boosting Tanjiro, the double energy Tanjiro that boosts something by 1K when a card moves. So he is able to boost something for 1,000 power, which helps him line up these attacks and be more efficient. So that's again where I mentioned early on, right? That Zenitsu that is a 2,500. Being able to be pushed up to 3,500, right, with that trigger allows you to attack into a lot of those 3Ks, which is really important for this type of match where a lot of decks can get stuck at that 3K or 4K range.
Yeah, I think 3K is kind of where you want to be in this matchup because a lot of the bodies are 3K, especially that forcing out these blocks as well is really, really good because that means that's less pressure that your opponent will be clapping back on you with. So here we see just going to pass it back over and not getting too much value out of those swings, only losing 1 on the side of Jeffrey. So now it's up to Jeffrey to see how he's going to respond to this board. And I think, like we mentioned, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a war of attrition. Push pull? What can I get from you, and what are you going to clap me back with? And you're just trying to mitigate as much damage as possible while trying to get bodies off the board as well from the side of your opponent. So here we see, it looks like that's the top 5 searcher.
Yeah, the Comrades. That's the card that threw me off. I was wondering if that was the different alt art for like total concentration breeze. Top 5 searcher for a Tanjiro, Nezuko, or Zenitsu. So really, or I guess also an Osuke technically, but in this case, allows you to just add those cards to your hand, try to find more of the raid fodder. So it looks like we're actually kind of all in on the searcher side of Demon Slayer, saying, hey, I recognize that in rare battles, the Nezuko is really a key driver for this matchup, and I just want to increase the consistency of being able to find it. So we are seeing, Comrades come into play this turn. We saw the Zenitsu early, so we are able to find, 2 extra Nezukos basically this way. And again, we really want to see a total concentration breathing or final trigger to restand our action points and extend out our turn, but that does line us up for a following turn when we get another Nezuko to activate that raid with.
And I like this. This is what I was mentioning earlier about cards that you don't see play often and seeing them in these rare battles. Because, like we said, being able to not find that Nezuko is literally the difference maker. And running a card that says, "Oh, I'm going to increase my consistency," is just so good and so good on the side of Jeffrey. I really like that. I might even consider adding that to my deck because I love those consistency cards. So it's going to be this clapback turn has the potential to be huge if he has an extender here. So here we see him drop that Nezuko, and he can definitely raid into it and put some pressure. But it looks like he's going to raid into the Tanjiro here, getting back a Nezuko from the sideline. And let's see if he's going to which one he's going to play. Ideally, here you play the 1-cost 1 that we talked about earlier, that is able to minus the something by 1500 or more by 1000. That would be the key one you would want to see in this situation. But unfortunately, not dropping that one. And here we see the Tanjiro going in with impact and hitting another Tanjiro raid out of life. That is the second one of this game, mind you. Oof. Very taxing, but deciding not to raid here.
Yeah, losing out the energy line mover can be really rough. And again, we might energy choke ourselves if we were to just snap raid it. So yeah, definitely something that has to go to hand in this case.
Yep, and he can just use that to pressure next turn as well, because that's going to be another 4K with impact coming in. So here we're just probably going to see a full block out here. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
And then just going to pass it back over to Frankie.
So again, a board that is lining up that has a bunch of, 3K attackers or 35s that we can line up, but not having the double energy Tanjiro in the energy line to give us that plus 1000 boost when something gets moved is limiting the amount of pressure that we can apply, where Frankie, again, on the left-hand side, rightfully just left it in the background there, has it on line already, and you really only need one. Again, the double energy doing a lot for streamlining your turns already, and then getting that 1000 extra attack power makes so many good attacks into the mirror match.
Ooh, and there we see the total concentration breathing here. So this is going to pop that Nezuko. But we do know he has a follow-up Nezuko as well. And going to hit the second one. So he's looking to push some damage here. And this is going to be a big turn, because now with that Nezuko online, as long as there's no special in the side of Jeffrey's life, he's going to be pushing a lot of damage here. So this first life check, Justin Obanai gonna get that draw trigger, and this turn is gonna be pretty grimy on the side of damage.
Yeah, the double special removal in a turn when you already have board established and getting these multiple attackers, right? We talk a lot about we have a turn to answer what our opponent is doing, and unfortunately it just didn't line up for Jeffrey on the right-hand side there. So this is just going to be a full brutal combo attack turn from Frankie, just taking out life after life.
Yep, life after life, and there's the Nezuko blocker, and oof, and then there's the game, and double special into full combo. Oh man, that was rough, very rough turn. But
yeah,
I mean,
that is exactly the turns that these decks want to be seeing, right? We see this a lot in One Punch Man as well. It's the Speed of Sound Sonic, right? Being able to stretch out these turns and get multiple attacks in that. Yes, they are completely relying as long as this first attack gets unchecked and allows us to do the combo of swapping cards, it is a very strong combo to pull off. So if nothing else, again, huge shout out to Frankie in that match, because it showed exactly what Yellow Demon Slayer wants to be doing in every single game, right? We were able to take a couple turns, set up, and our opponent didn't have an answer for it. So we were able to just create this massive tempo swing of saying, okay, my board's established. I can play both these specials now and not fall behind because of it. And we saw just Demon Slayer going in, and definitely why it's probably the top pick of the rare battles, and say, hey, here's 5 attacks. You have to hit something out of life, or we're just going to run away with it. So very good game by both players. Definitely a match that we expected to see a lot of. But T-Mac, what's some of your highlights from that match?
Honestly, like getting those raids in life is super, super huge. One of the things I mentioned as well is that when you don't see those Tanjiro raids or those Nezuko raids, it can be pretty taxing. But being able to get two out of life was really, really huge. He was able to starve off some of the aggro on the side of Jeffrey as well, being able to get that defensive raid Tanjiro. And we got to see the nice defensive raid and the offensive raid. So just showing how you need to know when you need to raid and when you don't need to raid. And man, I have to that highlight. That's going to be a highlight for me of when he goes double special into full combo and saying, "Hey, I'm going to end the game now. I can push that button." Beautiful, chef's kiss when it comes to things like that. I love seeing those types of things.
Yeah, and again, we did see a couple turns where it was just getting under where we needed to be able to push through that damage. Again, not having that double energy Tanjiro on your back line to give you that 1000 power boost. We had all these like really almost nice 2K to 3K attackers, but without that Tanjiro, we weren't able to push against our opponent's board and just got some free blocks there turn after turn. And, you know, that effect really starts to snowball and can run away with the game. And as we mentioned, lead up to that double special takeout. So again, huge shout out to Frankie for taking it with the Demon Slayer mirror match as a word, slightly different variation, but yellow on yellow Demon Slayer that we saw. So coming up next, we do have a Bleach match for you, but of course, we will be going to a short break. So thanks for catching us for this Demon Slayer round, but we'll be right back with Bleach versus Bleach in round 2 of the Union Rare Battles. We'll be right back. Welcome back for round 2 of the Union Arena Rare Battles hosted by CoreTCG. We just got out of an amazing Demon Slayer match, and now we're going to be diving into some Bleach. So, T-Mac, tell us again, for those that might have missed it, what are we excited about? What are we hoping to see for a Bleach versus Bleach battle?
Give me purple versus green. That is what I want to see. I want to see if someone has the same vision as I do and brought green to a rare battle. I think Toshiro has a lot of potential to be easily sweeping these up. So I hope someone did that. But chances are we're probably going to see purple versus purple just because purple does things that other decks just don't do.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, right? That Uno Hana just getting the extra value, playing out cards, giving you another 4K body. Like, there is so much pressure that you can apply off the back of that card. It does take usually an extra turn to set up just to get to that energy requirement. But when you start just playing card after card and advancing a full board of 4Ks, it gets surprisingly strong. And then, of course, we have different ways to give them impact and making sure you're closing out those last couple points of damage that you really. So, yellow would be really cool to seeing some of the Stern Ritter crew coming together, being aggressive. I know a lot of people are very excited for Bleach Volume 2, which is right around the corner, right? And we'll likely have more rare battles with it because the Bambi squad is all going to be in full power then. And we will truly see yellow kind of take the spotlight out of Bleach. Then, of course, the blue deck being kind of a key staple that I know a lot of people will be excited, right? In Volume 2 for Union Arena, they always add a color to that IP. For Bleach, it's going to be blue. And from what I've been hearing, what everyone tells me, because I haven't followed it as closely, the blue deck is pretty crazy. So that will be really fun to see how it impacts the overall meta.
Blue is going to be so strong, especially with that Rukia that's able to stun one unit as well. So it's going to be super hyped to see once we get around to it. But let's get into it. Bleach versus Bleach. What will we see here? What what are you hyped for, Cosmic? I know I'm hyped for the green. Which deck do you like out of Bleach?
Honestly, at this point, just to shake things up a little bit, I really do love the Asnot card, like from a raid and just like the stun perspective that it has. So I would like to see some yellow, but we'll have to wait and see what we're able to pull together. So we're gonna dive in here. It looks like we have purple on the left. I can barely see the hand when it's perfectly up and down, but we'll find out here in just a second. Yep, there we go.
And then
Good
we
old
see the Renji. Yep.
Good old Renji. Good old Renji Rush. And we'll probably get
tried and true blue jack.
Probably going to look at the hand here on the other side. The color Ichigo helping us set our top of deck, getting extra cards into our sideline. So for those who may be unfamiliar with Purple Bleach, this deck is all about using your sideline as a resource. You get to spend cards from your sideline, put them to the removal area to do things like drawing extra cards, shrinking cards by various amounts. There's just a lot of different ways that you can get value off of it. So if you played some other Bandai games and are familiar with like that purple self-mill, self-filtering strategy, that is exactly what Purple Bleach wants to be doing. And good golly, we are seeing an exact mirror of the turn one from both players, setting up that Renji, setting up that color trigger Ichigo into the discard potentially, or keeping it on top of the deck. All right, so T-Mac, how do you think this match is going to go? What are some key cards that you think are going to turn this favor or turn this tempo of the favor in one player or the other?
All right. So the first thing, it's funny to say, but the final trigger is going to be very important here. Being able to do those extension plays and getting into those massive board states. I'm curious to see if we're actually on Renji Rush or are we on that just pure Ichigo value? And it looks like we're on that Renji Rush with this push that Byron has done here. But the Renji is going to be very key here, being able to give it damage too, and just putting on that pressure early. And with this play here, Byron has said, "Hey, I have enough attackers that I can set up my backline and be comfy with doing this." So he is looking to end the game quickly here with this push. So this is going to be a quick 2 damage, easy peasy lemon squeezy. And here comes the first swing.
All right, so it looks like the Rukia that we're going to have here, getting the draw trigger, getting an extra card into your sideline, picking your life very carefully. And I believe that was the final trigger coming out of... I always forget what the alternate arts of the action point restanders look like off the top of my head. But
Hmm.
what's also really interesting about this now that we've, for both decks, there could have been a chance where we mill the top card if it's a 2 energy or less and hope to hit a color trigger just to get an extra blocker to the front line. But again, with
Hmm.
Brian's lead here and saying, hey, I have 4 low-cost cards on the board. I still have a few more in hand. It looks like he does have the Renji Raid to back up that damage too that we talked about. We are just
Hmm.
seeing how crazy strong and crazy fast this deck can be if you find the right pieces at the right time. Where on Jesse's side, looking to do a much more traditional set up the back line, play out our board type of thing, and maybe hoping to go into like a Ichigo raid here. But we do have the Restander, so we are able to expand out our turn a little bit more. And again, getting the removal here would be really key. Getting just some kind of blocker up to the front and stop the damage is going to be really important for Jesse to pull together this turn.
And that's the thing with doing this aggressive play as well, is that not your opponent is also on purple bleach as well, so they want to get cards into their sideline. So it could have also been a very, very key play by Jesse here, just not to set up anything in the front line and just take those 2 early damages. So now he can go in to that Ichigo raid and have more fuel to clear out one of these bodies here. But it seems like he's just going to go into the Renji raid here and just going in for the swing. And that looks like an add to hand trigger and just going to pass it back over.
Yep, just some couple quick attacks, getting some 4K blockers, which is really important, right? We talked about that Renji card, but it can only hit 3Ks for the sideline effect. So really heads up play here by Jesse, just establishing those 4Ks early. There's definitely a point here where you're trying to get a little bit more value and put a 3K to the front line and save those potential removal cards for the following turn. But again, huge heads up play here by Jesse, getting the 4Ks established and saying, hey, you are going to have to work a little bit harder to remove these cards and effectively put Brian back a turn now because he didn't have his energy line as established as Jesse's going to have going into his next turn.
Yep. And right now he has to see a turn extender here, or he's just going to have to hopefully clap black really well here. So it looks like this is just going to be a raid of a Renji of his own and just going to go in face. So basically, we're seeing an exact mirror here. So just going Renji for Renjis, which is very hilarious to see. But that's what it comes down to. A lot. This Renji rest strategy is just dropping 4Ks on the board and saying to your opponent, "Hey, can you remove my 4Ks? No, I'm going to get pressure. I'm going to push your life total, and you got to be able to find something to deal with this pressure." So it's just going to be back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, important to note too that Jesse was able to see the double energy provider in the back line. There's a little bit of a glare, but I think that's all single on Brian's side, so he is able to put more 4Ks back to the front line. Right, we don't have to really commit anything else too much to our back line unless we're trying to set up a raid. So he can just go like 4K body, and we see a removal in his hand and applies a very heavy board. But it looks like we are going for the AP draw. I think he did have another turn extender in his hand. But I do see the removal, which again, we don't want to give there it is. The removal coming down, getting rid of that Renji, not giving his opponent the option for damage to. Very important here. And then we are going to see him kind of going throughout his turn. Oh, another final. Yep, there it is. So he's going to just look to expend his hand here, try to say, hey, I'm trying to get my graveyard filled up. Maybe we have the Ichigo. We're going to get a couple more cards for the removal and really quickly set the tempo back here in Jesse's favor.
Yeah, so ideally here, he would love to see that drop another Ichigo on board, going into the 5-1 Ichigo, clearing the body, and just pushing 3 quick damage in, and hopefully not hitting any Getsuga Tenchos out of life. That would be the ideal scenario here. But like I said, you have to remember, especially against Bleach, you don't want to be giving them more cards to fuel, because now Byron can also now clap back with an Ichigo of his own, potentially getting rid of the Ichigo, and then we're back into the same scenario as before.
Yep, so it looks like the Renji, right? So if he had the Ichigo, he could have also just used the Ichigo for the last removal and then have Renji be 2 action points here. But Looks like
Yep.
we are just going in. So, okay, he did have Ichigo. It is the removal one. So for every 2 cards he removes here, he can shrink something by 1,000 in total. So it's 500 per, but just for the sake of math here, right? He's going to look for 8 cards to get rid of our opponent's, or sorry, it's just the 1K that's left. Thank you, Glare. It's just a smaller body that's left. So only has to commit the smaller amount. So still has a plenty of fuel in his energy here.
Yep.
Or in
And
his
this is going to
sideline.
be 3 quick swings here, easy peasy. And no Getsuga Tensho here. No, not these life triggers are not very nice to the side of Byron here. And
Up, he
it looks
does hit
like,
it on that
yeah,
last one.
on the last one. And that's what you hate to see. You hate to see that last life after you've taken all of the damage. It's just like, all right, here's a consolation prize for you.
I mean, huge factor here, though, for his next turn, right? He would have been able to just pressure the damage 2 off the Renji. And when your opponent gets down to like that 3 life area, every instance of damage matters. So the Renji just becomes a removal on a body at that point for 1 action. And, you know, a lot of times you're fine to do that. You're just going to say, hey, I'm going to keep pressing this button and applying this pressure until you can do something with it. So it is 4-3. We still have a very close game. We do have the 4 energy in the back line from Brian's side. So we do have access to all of our key raids we could potentially have. But looking at his hand, I think that is the removal Ichigo. It's a little bit hard to see from this angle of it. There's another Renji Rush, but again, the Renji only being able to remove 3K doesn't really impact his opponent's board that much. Like we're not taking the damage, or we're not blocking anyways, unless he gives the damage too. So not exactly the strongest hand that Brian might want to see to try to get tempo back on his side from the looks of it.
Yeah, you kind of just have to like set up blockers here at this point because like if you don't do anything, your opponent's just gonna double push up here and then look to just end the game. But you see here with the 1 push coming up, more than likely what you'll see is you'll see the double energy come down. He's gonna go into the Ichigo if he has it, and then just look to put up blockers as well.
Yep. So getting ourselves
Here's an
a 4K
Ichigo of his
blocker.
own.
Yep, and that is the draw one in this case. So that is the starter deck version, which is going to be draw and impact. So some good attackers, you know, that were able to at least chip in another point of damage, but definitely not the ideal Ichigo that you want to see in this situation. And the Renji, because it wasn't rated, it is a turn slower than what you want to be in this case.
Yep. Unfortunate on the side there. But I believe that Renji that got hit was an active trigger, so it was just able to block out that last swing there as well. So
Yep, and it was just the
just
1K that
passing
he,
it back.
the 1 energy
Yeah,
promoted,
just
so it was going to get blocked. But we're going to see what's in Jesse's hand here.
Now, ideally, he AP draws here because his energy line is set up, but the problem is he only has 2 swings here, and he still needs to be able to pressure Byron a little bit here so he can get in that additional chip damage to potentially look for the next turn to go in for game. But his energy is set up so he can make a push here, set up that extra blocker. So that looks like the Rukia in the back there. Maybe. Oh, and he has the removal, so that Suga Tensho is going to hit the impactor, and looks like another raid here. And let's see how many he's going to be removing here. Does he have enough to potentially get something off of the board? I don't think he
Massive
does.
turn. Well, it was
Huge.
the 1 energy, which is a 1500, right? So was it? I couldn't see because the glare. Was it the starter Ichigo or the removal Ichigo?
The one that he just
4.
raided into, yeah, he raided into the removal.
Nope.
No,
Starter
he
one.
raided into the starter Ichigo, yeah, because he only removed 4.
So yeah, it's just gonna be some quick scenes. Oh, and we do see the special. Woo! By himself, potentially a turn, knocking out the impact. Huge. If he wants to try to just take the life and go for a final trigger and try to climb back, but looks like we are just gonna protect our life total, really hang on to that Renji. So potentially huge special trigger for Brian, cutting off that aggression and not going down to 1.
That special trigger was huge. He needed to see that because his earlier life wasn't all that good, but that special trigger they're coming, cleaning up one of those bodies, especially the impact one. And this is why I personally like swing, like in these positions, I like swinging that impact because if I'm going to lose a body, my impact is already swung, right? So they're going to take out another body. So I still have my impact for the following turn, but just unfortunate sequencing there on the side of Jesse.
Yeah, and to be fair, like looking at Brian's board here, you know, on that past turn with Jesse, that entire turn was really able to come together off the back of the double energy provider. And unfortunately, Brian just hasn't been able to see a double energy, which again is the Ichigo that goes up to 4K in attack. He probably has some counts of the 2 energy. If it's active, provides double energy as well. So Brian is still going to have to spend one of his action points to commit something to his backline, which means he's still a blocker short of where he wants to be before he can even think about potentially raiding something. So again, a little hard to look at his hand. It looks like one of them was a raid, though. And I think it's like raid Renji in the back of his hand, which, again, against all 4Ks is not the best spot to be in.
Yep, and we see another raid Ichigo here coming down. And I'm not sure if that is the starter deck one or the 5-1. It looks like, yeah, I think that is the starter deck one because he is banishing 4, so he will be able to draw a card here and give it impact as well. And only on 3 energy, and this is kind of not where you want to be. So realistically, you want to put 1 body on the board here because he's actually going to give the Renji double damage here and hopefully swing drawing out a blocker.
I mean, kind of have to, knowing that he has impact, so. Yep. Oh, and a raid Ichigo is about to go to hand. Oh, this could be huge if he has it in the back line. That's just a free removal. Oh, this could be a huge, huge pickup if he has the Ichigo in his hand. There's only 2 cards, though. We know that one of them is a raid. And it looks like that was a Bankai off the top. So we get a free extra draw, basically.
Yep. So ideally here he has a body that he can play at 3 energy and then go up. He won't. I don't think he will have enough to raid into the 5-1 Ichigo, but
just a promote.
Ooh. Okay, so
but Rukia only gets 3,500.
And he's only going to be able. So I think the line here Jesse is thinking is that he is going to remove 4 from his sideline, give the Ichigo impact, swing the impact, and then swing Rukia and draw a block here. And then he has a blocker to follow it up. Because if Byron doesn't have the extension to go in for the next turn, it's looking pretty grim, and maybe he can take it with the impact on the following turn. Very risky play here, but it depends on what Jesse has in his hand. Can he come back? Because he only has 2 energy right now, so he has to set up his energy line.
Yeah, we know that we did see the. Yeah, like I said, at this point, I probably would have counted the specials in his graveyard just to like double check, but it must have been a 0 then that he had the. Yep, a Renji, and then we are just gonna. He said we're swinging. And again, it could be an active trigger that could block the way. So definitely want to hit some 4Ks first. Nope. Hey, he found a double energy Ichigo right towards the end, and
eventually, and then will this be a final?
No, it's a special.
No.
Last card.
That could have been so grimy if it went the other way. But man, Jesse played that really well. Like he had to go for it there because he realized he was a little bit short on energy. So he just decided, hey, I'm going to finish out this game, close it up. My opponent has 2-2, and he wasn't able to, Byron just wasn't able to get there. Unfortunate, though. But still a very good game.
A really great showcase of just how important those double energy providers can be, right? That entire game, Brian was basically a card behind turn after turn because he had to commit something else to go into those raids or just provide a 4K to the front line. So it will be a case of just waiting to see if I can get that 4K established, or in that case, it would have been maybe like a Rukia coming up and getting some extra draw. And I don't think we saw the raid coming out of, or the 3-drop Rukia coming from Brian's side. So we didn't have the option for extra filtering, but again, a very skillful demonstration of knowing when to filter with Bleach, how many cards are we sending to the sideline, and really just making sure we're able to find areas to get in those couple points of chip damage. And Renji, I mean, that card just continues to be an MVP, right? The damage to without being rated just applies so much pressure. So T-Mac, really quick, what's a highlight for you for that match?
So for that match, honestly, I really like seeing those pushes That double push up there, like, was really strong, and that just shows so sometimes you will get punished for being that aggressive. We saw Byron do that double push, but maybe if he had held it back a little bit so he could have set up his energy line a little bit more, that would have been good as well. But I also liked when Jesse was able to just do that, like I mentioned at the start of that match, where the turn extenders were gonna be huge, and we
Oh yeah.
did get to see from both players, like, how impactful turn extenders can be. I've seen lists that have even gone so far to cut them. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Like, we don't like extra action points here, but like the turn extenders in that matchup did really well. We got to see Jesse basically being able to put out bodies and doing a massive play, being able to push 4 damage easy peasy there. So that was definitely the highlight for me. What about yourself, Goss?
Yeah, again, I just love some of those hype moments, seeing what's coming out of life and how you have to like reposition yourself and really think about the dynamic of, okay, well, now I need to spend a turn like building up my energy. Do I have the 4K to maybe potentially stop a attacker like we saw? Like a lot of really good key back and forth moments that really can highlight that, you know, in Union Arena, you really have to think about your setup turns and how important it is to, hey, can I double push? Do I need to spend another turn? Taking it off to maybe go for an action point draw. A lot of like micro decisions that really can matter over the course of the game and really decide it where you might miss it at first glance. So honestly, just we've been pretty lucky so far. Two really good showcases back to back that I've been really excited to see. But up next, we are going to have One Punch Man Rare Battle after a short break. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be back after a very quick moment for One Punch Man. See you soon. Welcome back for round 3 of the Union Rare Battles hosted by CoreTCG, and we are excited to bring you another match. This time, One Punch Man is coming up. My name is Cosmic, joined by T-Mac. So let's talk One Punch Man, right? What are we taking here? What are we expecting to be the highlight of this round, T-Mac?
Yellow Saitama. We know we love it. We've played against it. I expect to see it in full force here for this round. Deck's just really good. Really insane pressure with that 5-2 Saitama. Just being able to say, hey, I got double damage on 10k, and you have to take a block here. You 95% of the time you are getting a damage. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of the spice. I know you like the Speedo Sonic deck, so and especially in these rare battles here, we know red is really, really strong. So I wouldn't be expect to see someone bring that as well.
Yeah, I definitely gotta give a shout out to Green King, Green Saitama, just any type of self-mill strategies for like this really big payoff that you can line up and see coming down the road, and your opponent just starting to sweat as they realize that you're getting to about 20 cards in your sideline, which is the sweet spot for that deck for most matchups, is just so fun. And then based on how the game might have went, sometimes you do get to live the dream of having the 7 damage Saitama just taking out your opponent all in one go. I actually had that come up finally last night, and I was just like, yep, is there a final? No. We'll see how it goes, but it's a very, very strong deck. And then, yeah, again, there's just a lot of good options to pick from One Punch Man. And the other one that I know, Terrible Tornado and Hellish Blizzard, the Esper Sisters, being a deck that took a lot of people by surprise because it is a deck that you get to cycle through your deck for the first time in Union Arena, perfectly set up the order of your deck, and then go through a second cycle to try to find those raid targets and really close out the game. So for maybe the big brain enjoyers out there who really love setting up and counting exactly how many cards that you have left in your deck, I mean, we finally got that playstyle in Union Arena as well. And getting to see so many different decks all combined into a single set is just so exciting. So again, T-Mac, I know we talked about yellow, we talked about green, but what are some of your favorite characters? Maybe not even just the different archetypes, but if you had to pick one card that was overall your favorite from the set, what card are you picking?
All right. So I actually have two, and we talked about one off stream, and I'm going to touch on that one in a second. But well, the first one I want to talk about, man, when I tell you that 15-2 Saitama just does something to my brain, just being able to say, hey, damage 7, do you have it? And I get to get rid of a body, just insane work. But the other card I have to talk about, and just on a whole, is the red. We haven't talked about Boros. That 3-1 Boros is a lovely addition into the game. Just being able to say, hey, not only do I get to take a life, but I also get to draw 2 and then trash 1. So I get so much card draw and finding my pieces. And that was the big issue red had, was that consistency. Being able to get that card, the card draw now, especially with that um the Garo that allows you, not the Garo, the Speed of Sonic, I should say, that allows you to draw 1 if you get rid of 3 cards. And we haven't even talked about red yet. So many good cards in red this format too, with the Garo deck. Garo being able to say, hey, I just need 15 in sideline and then I can do insane stuff. Boros being able to clear a body as well. And plus just all that draw and filter that red gets now, just so good. So definitely those 2 cards are the biggest cards for me. What about
Yeah,
yourself, Cosmic?
I'm a big Boros fan as well, which we might get to see because it sounds like we're ready to start this match. So fingers crossed that we're going to see at least red as one of them. But especially with One Punch Man, there's a lot of variety that we get in this set that I would not be surprised to see any of the colors. Right, this is one that you could tell me it's green versus green, it's yellow versus yellow. There's red. Like, I am down for any deck to play in a rare battle. Again, just because it's being so different and exciting that we finally see like a proper aggressive strategy with Speedo Sound Sonic. I really hope we see the red deck. It's just so fun to play. But again, all of them have just been such strong surprises with this being a simultaneous release set with Japan and the North American meta, like we're going to see in some of the other later sets. We have Ronin Kenshin confirmed as well. Full Metal Alchemist is also going to be joining us in Union Arena right around the corner. But we are going to get set up here and see what is in our players' hands.
Yeah, so definitely this simultaneous release has been really good, and this is the first time it's happening, and just being able to see like the different crafts and stuff like that as well, not only from the JP side of things, but also on the English as well. This is the first time we're actually getting to put our own stamp on the game of Union Arena. So definitely really fun. That's why the set has been so exciting because this simultaneous release, we get to compare our list between us and JP and see the deck building differences. And there we have fist bump to start it off, and let's get into it.
All right, I am so excited because, as you mentioned, we are going to see on the left from Kevin a Genos in Saitama, just standard mid-range, really strong pressure deck. And shout out to Lee on the right, playing the Esper Sisters, a deck that if you are a master of it and if you know how to combo off, it does some insane turn. So I'm really hoping we're going to get to see the full pop off here on the right side of the field, but just getting to play like, 8 cards a turn, multiple finals, multiple cyclings. It really just does the most.
Yep. So I have actually labbed this matchup. Shout out to my homie Vocals, who we've practiced this matchup over and over again. And it's honestly one of the most 50-50 matchups, just because, like you said, Esper Sisters can recur that final, and being able to recur things like one punch, for example, being able to deal 1 damage and just put that pressure on the Saitama player, especially because that Saitama, that 5/2, does come in rested, right? It stays rested once you go to your opponent's turn, so it won't be a blocker. The Esper Sisters that can just churn out value, and even in some scenarios keep that tap down as well, so to turn off that pressure. So it's very key to see what cards are drawn here for both players, because that's going to determine the game. And the advantage that Esper Sister has as well is being able to use that event card called Esper Sisters pieces. That consistency we talked about in earlier rounds is very good. Is going to be very key in this matchup.
And speaking of consistency pieces, right, we did see the Hellish Blizzard on the right, which is all about the events. And then on Kevin's side, we have the Genos, which allows us to find the Saitama with the added effect. If you have a Saitama on board already, which usually happens a little bit later, it does come with a card draw off the back of it as well. And, a key part of this matchup too is the Esper Sisters can take a little bit of time to set up, which can allow the Saitama and Genos combo to apply a lot of pressure early. But we're going to see these first couple turns just matter so much for the Esper Sisters and how you're able to line up and apply pressure. So looks like we are going to go into the raid of the Hellish Blizzard, just get the flat draw 2. And I love this card because it allows us to pitch 2 cards and get back an event card from our life here. So, unfortunately, we do see a special right off the rip, and getting rid of that Hellish Blizzard value. We did get to see the card draw, and we do get to see the other, damage coming across.
Yep, and ideally there for Kevin, that is what you want to see as your first life, getting rid of that. Like you mentioned, that Hellish Blizzard, being able to say, I get to get something back by discarding 2 cards, is just super strong. Pair that with the Terrible Tornado, and you have a world of a turn. So being able to get rid of that early is just super good. So here we see Kevin setting up that Saitama in the back, the one that you can discard a card to push it up, as long as your front line isn't full. And here we're going to see that looks like the 4/2 Saitama, the starter deck one, so being able to pop a 4K body, so just looking to get in that early damage. And you saw the extension play there as well. So if he has another extender here, maybe he can look into a 5/2 Saitama play, but it's more than likely just going to be playing another body out and just passing it over.
Yeah, huge turn here from Kevin's side, really being able to capitalize on the special trigger out of life and also having the restander to extend out his turn. Now, the Saitama is going to go away, so it's going to be, good for a damage. But we do want to swing with the Genos first, just to see what our opponent is going to get. And then the Saitama is going to do a damage and be like, what? I'm out, guys. Have a good one. But he is able to, come back later if we can dig deep enough, and maybe we have like Saitama's apartment to cycle back, but chances are the game will be over before we go from the second cycle on the Saitama and Genos side.
So something to note here as well. We do see that Lee here does not have the best board state right now, because he did get unfortunately hit with that special and then with the 4/2. But the one strength of Esper Sisters is, just because you don't have a board right now, if you can just see your raid pieces, you can build up a massive board in one turn. So here we can see potentially a clapback as well, because on the side of Kevin, there's only that Genos. raid, which is good defensively, but you kind of need it to get removed so then you can play another one to get that ball rolling. But watch this turn here from the Esper Sisters because this could be a very powerful turn.
Yep. So again, setting back up, we get at least one card to the front, maybe trying to find the Terrible Tornado if we have the raid already, which will be very strong at applying pressure. And then also the Terrible Tornado has a really awesome effect that allows you to play an event card, reduces action point by 1. So effectively for free for the turn. It is a hard once per turn in this case, but allows you to pull off some very strong combos, getting you extra action points, getting extra removal when you need it. Really is just a key staple of what the deck needs to be doing.
Yep. And here we see that the Terrible Tornado raid coming out, he was able to use the final and get back those 2 AP. And that looks like he used an Esper Sister there to dig out an event. And then is going to follow it up with
Immobilize. We're going for the
Immobilize.
stun, it looks like, to get the extra damage in. So because we have, or we're missing, I can't tell if that last card was another Hellish Blizzard. So if you have both Hellish Blizzard and Terrible Tornado on the front line, it'll stun it for a full turn. So if he has both, I mean, this is a very strong damage push turn.
And unfortunately hitting that color trigger in life. So it looks like he's going to keep the Terrible Tornado tap down. And we do know on the side of Kevin, he has the 5/2 Saitama in hand. But the question is, does he play the 5/2 Saitama and then look to maybe go into a special? Because he does. It doesn't look like he has enough energy, so he will have to play something in the back to get up to that 5 energy. But it does look like he has the 4/2, so he can do a power play here.
Yeah, the Terrible Tornado is just such a threat that you have to answer immediately. Like, the longer the card sits on the table and just gives you a 4th action point every turn that it's alive effectively is insane. And because you can combo with Hellish Blizzard to, discard 2 cards and get back any event that's not a special, it really allows you to just churn through your deck and find those key pieces or raids that you really need.
Yep, and here we see Kevin. It looks like he is going for it for that 4/2.
Or I think he tried to play the 5/2,
Yeah,
but didn't have the
5/2
energy.
and didn't have the energy. Yep. So he had to take back the 5/2 and is just going to hero, then
Okay,
play the 5/2. Yeah. Okay.
so we got there. We just had to maybe shortcut or mentally shortcut. It happens, right? When you're trying to go through and just saying like, hey, this is the thing that I need to play, kind of on this turn. So we are going to be, threatening the damage to or impact. It is going to stick around. But I don't think I see the king on the back line. It looks like it's Geno, Saitama. No, but it's another Geno. So it's going to stay rested though. We're giving our opponent a lot of options to just clap back for a lot of damage with not having established, characters that we want to see.
Yeah, and it seems like he has the 1 punch in hand as well. So maybe what he can do here is look to get that 1 point of damage in and then potentially go in for a big swing here with the 5/2. So it will more than likely draw a block. But unfortunately, on the side of Kevin, not having that extender. But what he can do is keep 1 card in hand to potentially move that other Saitama up and look to do 3 damage this turn.
Yep. So with this, because our opponent's at a higher life count, we are just going to use the Pop a Life effect from One Punch. It does have the ability to give impact on the other side if we want to, but looks like we are just going to go for the straight damage option in this case. And we hit a draw trigger.
All right. Yeah.
So hey, I mean, more card draw, right? That's exactly what we want to see from the Hellish Blizzard side and making sure we're finding those pieces. So we're going to pitch a card, get the other Saitama up front. But again, if we just take, some careful blocks here for our consideration, because the Genos is still tapped down, right? We just take 1 damage and everything's fine.
Yep. That's definitely where you want to be. So yeah, just going to let this go through here. And then not hitting anything there. I think that was another draw trigger. And that's definitely what you want to see. And just having that 1 Genos blocker. So on the side of Lee here, Lee is kind of chilling. If he can find another Hellish Blizzard raid here, he can definitely do some very nasty damage and maybe even push for game because he's able to tap down that Genos with the immobilize that we saw last turn as well, barring specials and color triggers.
Yeah, the terrible tornado sticking around for a turn here is huge, to say the least. Like,
Yeah.
again, just getting that
Yes.
extra action point, like you take the draw every time and get to see what you draw into from there, knowing that no matter what, we have an extender for our terrible tornado to play an event. So
Mhm.
Bahat's an alt art. So I'm assuming that is the event
All right.
searcher if it's the one drop, right?
Yes. So it searches a card that is 3 energy or less, and if you take an event, you have to put it to the sideline. But it seems like he whiffed off of it, so unfortunate on the side of Lee. But if he has the extension plays, he can get, like I said, to a pretty grimy turn here. But it looks like he doesn't have, and then there's the immobilize coming down. So yes, so this is going to be another 2 damage potentially coming in here.
Oh, no, it's the psychic. It's a straight removal. It's the
Oh,
special that counts
they
the
they
event.
actually
Even better.
they actually look very similar. But yes, even better. And not having another Genos to potentially drop a Genos off of that Genos effect, but just gonna go in for 2 damage here and pass it back over. And this man, Lee is in the driver's position here, right? Having that board, having that terrible tornado, being able to stay on the board a turn later than it should be, um, is just really, really good. And now Kevin's gonna have to do a lot of work here because he needs to be able to break through these 3 life, which is possible because if he's able to establish maybe a Genos raid, maybe he can get there. But his hand is not looking the best. I think that's only 3 cards in hand.
Yeah, let's look like he's going to be a little bit short. And, this is definitely one of the drawbacks that we had talked about when reviewing like the yellow Saitama and Genos deck is there are a lot of cards that either stay rested, move to your energy line, disappear at the end of the turn. So it just opens up these pockets where you have to be very mindful or just hope to see some of the Genos cards, which are, stickier, stay up front, can play a card off of them for free to give you those extra blockers to buy you the time so you can finally line up the it's like the 3 energy double block Genos. But really key play here by Lee is that we have the site for the terrible tornado and hellish blizzard combo that gives them all plus 1k if you play an event, so you can actually get beyond the double blocker threat if he had it by boosting your characters up. So we have a very strong board position here from Lee's side.
Yes, very strong indeed. And it looks like that's another 5-2 on the side of Kevin. So I think Kevin's logic here is he just has to kind of go for it. And it looks like that's a disintegration cannon in hand as well, which is the general special. So maybe he can look to push some damage here, especially with the other Saitama. But the very unfortunate part is he's unable to do that and bring up the other Saitama as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he decides to do here.
Yeah, it's definitely a very rough position to be in. Again, with that 5-2 Saitama, to gain the impact, you have to discard another copy, or I guess I should say just a Saitama card in general. It has the damage too, naturally, which is something that we don't mind blocking in this case. Like we've gotten quite a few extra draw triggers as the Esper Sisters player. And shockingly, I've only seen the one raid Hellish Blizzard so far, but it looks like we are going to go for the discard, getting rid of a hero actually, and just saying, hey, we're gonna just apply as much damage as possible and see what we can take out from your side of the board.
Yep, he's just praying and hoping that maybe there's a final trigger in life, but this will draw a few blocks for sure.
Yeah, I think you can
So at
just
least,
afford to go down to 1 in this case, right? Because it's the only damage to is on the Saitama. Block that, and then the 10k Saitama is going to go away, and then you have the blocker on the other one.
so this is going to be 2 hits. So I think that was an active trigger.
Oh, that's huge because it gives you a free block on one of them. Then, so yeah, that's
Yep, and then gonna block that, and then just gonna block that as well, and
right.
lose
No, that
2
was another
bodies here.
Saitama on the board. Actually, I forgot it was the rested
Yeah.
one. So
Yep. So on the side of Kevin, unfortunately, he has to just hope for a final here because this is just going to be a quad push from Lee, and Lee's just recognizing that that's the position that it's in.
yeah, play some cards. Go, go, go. Right. It would have to
Yep.
be double final shenanigans. I totally missed that was the other Saitama because of the glare. So yeah, just
Yeah.
no blockers then from Kevin's side and just saying, hey, quad push. I beat double final here, right? Like there's
So
it would be an insane sequence. So we've already seen
the
two
ins
discarded, right?
I think I think the sequence would have to be an active trigger to get the Saitama block and then double final, which would be the chances of that happening are very unlikely, but this is Union Arena and we've seen even worse scenarios happen before. So let's see what happens here. And on the side, Lee just has to go for it.
Also, quick shout out to Lee's board just getting fully built up again is insane. The timing,
Yes,
right?
yeah, I tell you. And
No,
then
and there's
yeah, no final.
Yep, there's the last one. The Hellish Blizzard. Unfortunately, was not able to find the Hellish Blizzards to go into the raid to draw out on Kevin's side. And again, that would be another card that you're happy to see the raid form because you are able to get the two card draws off of it, find other Saitamas to pitch to Saitamas. Like it's just a great deck smoother for what you want to be doing. But again, with the Saitama and Genos combo, and because you're losing so many blockers a lot of time, you really got to rely on finding those Genos at the key time, or you're going to see a game go like that where we get the quad push up. We're just able to apply the pressure on that final turn where we really need it, and Lee was able to take this game. So,
Yeah, so like I
T-Mac,
mentioned, just on that turn where uh mhm.
yeah, I'll say go ahead to tell us your thoughts on that match. Oh, we might have lost T-Mac
Yes,
again there
so
with
like I was
slight. Oh, there we go.
saying that yeah, so that turn there, where I mentioned where Lee had no board and just able to build. Yes, so like I was saying, that turn there, where Lee just didn't have that board state, and he was able to basically bring it back, from basically nothing and just doing all of that raid stuff. That's just the power of Esper Sisters, honestly. Just very, very strong deck overall, especially when you have a good pilot like we just saw on display there.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I was really hoping we get to see the full cycle, but the Esper Sisters card that allows you to dig 7, right? We did see, I think, 2 of them come out of life, as it were. So the draw trigger is nice, but to really see the deck shine in the way it's supposed to, it's all about setting up your deck and knowing when that second cycle is really going to come into play and be the powerhouse that deck wants to showcase. So that was our rare battle for One Punch Man. But coming up next for round 4, Kogias, and this is one that, you know, as it launched, it was such a powerful set, bunch of great decks that you could pick from. So this will be round 4 of the Kogias battle, and I'm very excited to see what came down to this matchup. And there might be a round 5, maybe potentially, depending on how some of the standings went. But after a short break, we will be back with the rare battle hosted by CoreTCG. So stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back for round 4 of the Union Arena Rare Battles hosted by CoreTCG. I'm Cosmic, joined once again by T-Mac, and we are about to get into some Code Geass battles. So, T-Mac, again, as we talked about right before the break, this is an insanely strong set. There's a lot of options that you could pick, but what are you most excited for in this round?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to talking about the purple CG. It's one of the best decks in the game, and especially in this format. It is very, very strong overall. But hopefully, I would personally like to see a
All right, looks like his internet's
different color deck.
cutting up here just a little bit, but yeah, Purple Code Geass,
I
as
would
we
like to
know,
see
is
maybe like
very strong and one we're
a
gonna
red
have a
Ashford,
key
even a
part of.
Lancelot, something different. Like so far we've seen some incredible games, and I would like to.
All right, looks like it. We'll probably need a minute there to buffer. Let's see if we can get into the table itself, diving right in again with Code Geass. As we mentioned, lots of key staples here that you can pick up. So, very curious again to see what our players are going to bring. Well, based on the action points on the left from Alan, I'm guessing we're going to see purple Code Geass, right? Having the Callan flex on there, and they look foil as well, perhaps from here. So, definitely a key card there. And then Lancelot on the right. Although the Lancelot action point and the special rare battle sleeves look very similar, so it might actually be green. And all right, we are going to see a green versus purple. So Lancelot versus Kaladin Lelouch, and we are going to dive in and see what our players have for us today.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to see this here. Very excited to see this Lancelot play, and this matchup is actually pretty interesting. It's not as one-sided as people think. So hopefully we get to see a good showcase here.
Yeah, what I really love about Purple Code Geass, right? It's kind of a build your own adventure style of deck just because of how many different lines that it can take. Where on the Lancelot side, for those who are maybe unfamiliar with the deck, it is another late game green style of deck. You want to get up to 8 energy for your big Lancelot, remove something on play, body damage to an impact. It just does the most. But it looks like we are going to see an early damage here from Alan's side. Again, wanting to be the aggressor in this matchup because Green Lancelot can take so much time to stabilize and kind of get running with it.
Yep. So in this matchup here, it really comes down to if you can see that Jeremiah double blocker, because what Purple CG is going to be looking to do is to run you down. They want to hit your life total as hard and fast as possible, and you need to be able to stabilize.
And what's really great about the purple versus green matchup too is for the first time we see a lot of the energy reduction cards that come into play. Oh, we're going right into a Lancelot, actually. Speaking of being aggressive with it, the damage to Lancelot that gets plus 1k until the start of your next turn. Great blocker, but what's really most important about this card in particular is that you get the raid fodder back. And when you combine that with the Suzuki that has the on-play draw a card effect, you're constantly being able to churn through your deck, draw extra cards while still advancing your game plan. So very strong pickup here that we're seeing from Gavin's side on the right.
Yeah, and this is as a Lancelot player myself, this is probably the most ideal way you want to see. You have the double energy set up there. You're able to get into the 6 cost, so you get to put the pressure on the purple CG player, and they have to do so much work to potentially get that Lancelot off of board. And now, ideally, what you would like to see here is maybe find a double energy and then go into the 8 cost Lancelot to counteract this gameplay here.
Yep. So again, we are going to see a 4K to a 4K here because the ability of the raid card is going to reduce the BP thresholds. So the Lancelot, we're just going to keep it on board. We want to threaten back a damage to turn, which is going to be very strong against Alan. Again, focusing up to have to block a card every turn or just take a lot of damage early on can be devastating. So that was the step Suzaku that we're seeing. Again, it's just going to go right back to the back line here. Yep, go ahead, T-Mac.
Oh, yes. I was saying here, the step Suzaku here, just putting in a great work, not only being a 3,500, so it can also like start off that early next turn plays. So here we're just going to see a lot of damage coming out on the side of Gavin, just going in for damage after damage and having to draw out the blocker with that double damage 4K there. So very, very good, strong gameplay here, honestly, from Gavin. And this is what you want to see as a Lancelot player.
Yeah, again, very, very strong start, being able to apply a lot of pressure. And we are seeing the C2 come down, which is a great card for just cycling itself, giving you the extra energy when you really need it. But again, unless we find a way to get that special, remove that damage to Lancelot, we are just going to be kind of stuck on the back foot. And clearly, Alan is trying to dig for it, right? We know that we're just going to give him back a raid fodder, and potentially, you know, our opponent's going to follow it up with another 6 or 8 cost Lancelot. But we just need a turn to breathe. We need to find that turn that we can restabilize, get our energy line set up, neutralize a threat, and then come back with a big, powerful swing turn of our own. But just not finding that special removal in time is going to be really, really painful for us.
Yeah, and unfortunately on the side of Alan here, we haven't seen any of the Gurren raids as of yet, and that's one of the things that is very, very detrimental. If you don't see those Gurren raids to potentially minus 1K and then go into the one where it gets either the force block or the pop of 3K, your opponent can just run away with the game. And here we're seeing Gavin basically doing a Lancelot masterclass, just putting immense pressure onto the board right now and just going for it.
Yeah, huge damage turn. And again, too, when we think about these 5K bodies that come on board, right? The Gwaine is only a 4K. So we are potentially just blocking out cards as needed and being able to apply a lot of pressure. So again, really rough start here with not being able to see the special triggers when we really want them and just kind of dictating the entire flow of the game at this point.
But yeah, here we see a color trigger coming down as well. So being able to stop one of those attacks. And there we finally see our first mech of the game in that Gurren Mark II. So being able to raid into that and potentially popping a 3K and also gaining impact for the turn is really what you want to see here. Now, this is where you want to be as a purple CG player. You know you have the target. So here we're going to see the minus 1K come down. And now we're going to see Alan is going to go into that Gurren Mark II, popping that body and looking to push back some damage now, finally, after turns and turns of being abused by Lancelot.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the many combos that the deck can pull off and just make it some really awkward blocks for your opponent. And again, we haven't really seen too much from I don't think we've seen a Varus yet from Gavin's side either. So one of those could be hiding out in life, which would be another quick change of this game state and kind of where the boards are at. So it looks like we are going to see the double raid here, getting us to apply a good amount of pressure, ruin the blocks for our opponent, and go from there.
Yep. So here, this is just going to be immense pressure, and that's the thing. Gavin was in the driver's seat, but now Alan is in the driver's seat. Just being able to see that one Gurren Mark II and just apply so much pressure here.
And we do get a color trigger, which allows us to play something from our hand. So just establishing another body. We do see a draw trigger come out of life, and then just preserving our life total because we know that our opponent is potentially going to have some amount of impact. So definitely when that happens, we want to stay at 2 life when possible. So we're digging. We're trying to find another Lancelot, trying to find removal of our own. It looks like I think he had a final in his hand that got shuffled to the back. So we do have a turn extender potentially. It's going to be very interesting to see how this turn lines up because it's a very important turn for Gavin to reestablish and set up his board here to set the tempo back in his favor, right? Alan only having the 1 card left, it looks like, so could potentially be a huge swing back turn. So there's the live. We get the turn extender.
Yep. Yep. And then here we see Gavin do just a little bit of a more defensive play, being able to go put a body up in front, and then now also just playing hyper defensively and just hoping for the best here. So this is going to be a damage 2 swing coming out. And now Alan has to decide, do I block here or do I take this 2 damage going down to looks like 1 there and just letting it ride? And he decides to take 2, and one of them being a final, unfortunately. You hate to see that.
That wrong order, the ordering matters there. You know, you do get to pick your opponent's life at the end of the day. So a soul read, as we like to call it, by Gavin, hitting the final trigger, preventing it from being the last one. But hey, there could still be another final trigger too, right? I think we've only seen 2 from Alan's side. You know, the stream kicking out a couple times there, but I think we still have a very alive, dream final turn from Alan's side to hit the final out of life.
And honestly, Gavin is at 2 life right there, so it's not down and out yet. But the problem here on Alan's board is because of that raid play last turn, he is down on energy, and I can't see if that is the double energy Lelouch on the board there, or it's the single energy. But if it is the double energy Lelouch, he can maybe do a pretty nice play here and being able to extend, but it doesn't look like he has it, so he's just gonna go in for the swing here and hopefully draw out a block. And it looks like it's spelling doom here. And it looks like Gavin is in the driver's seat. All he really has to do here is push up another body and just go for 4 swings to
Yep.
the 2 blocks. And that looks like exactly what he's going to do here. Gavin's going to go in for the 4K swing, hoping for a final. And there's the GG's. Gavin end up taking it. Lancelot on top. That was a beautiful masterclass on how to play Lancelot.
That was a speed game that we saw from Gavin and Alan, but especially when you're that late in the rounds, like, how that matchup is going to go. And we did see Gavin kind of take it there at the end and really just showcasing how strong that the various Lancelots can be. And I'm not sure if that was a flex foil at the end, but I was going to also say shout out to Gavin for having all of the alt arts or a good chunk of them. And, definitely for me, Nanami is the deck that I have foiled out because it's like my bread and butter. It's a deck that I love, but I always love seeing people who commit to, hey, this is the one deck that I play. This is what I really love. So I'm going to get all the cards foiled out and put together. So huge shout out to Gavin on that side. And then again, we did see a little bit of the purple code Gias kind of doing its thing and getting to see some raid combinations pulled together, but ultimately just falling a little bit short there in the end to not get those last couple of points of damage that we really got to see. So quite a few kind of key highlights, T-Mac, but, talk to us a little bit about the match from your side of it.
I know a lot of people think this matchup is very purple CG favored, and it was very nice to showcase that isn't the case there. That Lancelot can do its thing when you see those early raids, and it was very nice that Gavin was able to display that here.
Yeah, again, huge fan of, again, all the Code Geass decks and just, the raids are super flavorful. I really love the design standpoint of this, but I know with maybe One Punch Man and some of the later red decks that we got, especially in Demon Slayer, I know Ashford Academy doesn't have as much time in the spotlight as maybe we've seen recently, but man, when you get the site online, you get those early 3K restands, apply the damage, it is still quite scary at what that deck is able to pull together. So far, that was round 4 that we have. Looking back, Demon Slayer, Bleach, One Punch Man, a pretty good showcase overall. And we might have one more round. We're still waiting here on that. But T-Mac, talk us through the events that we had so far. What matchup really sticks out to you and kind of some key highlights that you just want to take a moment to reflect on.
Honestly, I have to flip back to that double special play that we saw earlier. Being able to clear out those bodies and just saying, hey, I have damage on board. That was really good. I'm very honestly, that last game really resonated with me as well, just because Lancelot is a deck that I love to my heart, near and dear. I always go back to it, and just being able to see just the variety on how it can be played is just really, really nice. Being able to see that, yes, you can go into that top end. I don't believe even in that game that we were able to see the 8 cost come out there, but just the 6 cost, being able to put pressure, do a bunch of damage, and just say to my opponent, oh, I'm going to go for that life total. That was really, really strong. So I was very appreciative of that. We were able to see that here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, definitely, the mirror matches I find are always interesting to see how you're going to navigate them. So for me, the Tanjiro mirror match in round 1, going back to, do we have the double energy? Do we have the plus 1K Tanjiro in the back line to fuel that strategy so we can apply a little bit more damage? Was a really interesting game. As you said, the double special. But again, I really love watching mirror matches played out that are really close like that. So we'll have to wait and see. Looks like we're waiting on that last match. But again, great 4 rounds so far. And it looks like we are going to take a short break here with the Union Arena Rare Battles hosted by CoreTCG. And we might have another round, but stick with us. We'll be right back with that information. Welcome back. And we have just heard that will be the end. So we did get to see a winner crown there for the Code Geass, the last undefeated, wrapping up our rare battles for today. But before we sign off again, let's round it back up, T-Mac. Let's talk about the rounds. Let's get excited for all the games that we saw so far. So let's just start off with Demon Slayer, right? We got to see that mirror match. I guess we talked about that right before the break, so we won't get into that too much, but let's talk about Bleach a little bit, right? Getting to see the purple, again, talking about these mirror matches, but really the showcase, in my opinion, of the double energy, really setting the flow of that match and how strongly that dictated just how that breakdown went. So what's a quick recap on your thoughts for that match in particular?
Yeah, it was very interesting to see that we got to see, just like you said, how impactful double energy is in this game from time to time, especially when your the top end is at 5. You need to see that double energy so you can establish. And when your opponent sees it and you don't see it, it is critical, honestly. So it was a good thing we got to showcase that, but we also still got to see just how powerhouse of a card Renji is. Just being able to say, "Hey, double damage every turn." That is always a threat, and just the 4K bodies being able to go in. And also, what we got to see in that matchup as well is that we got to see that sometimes being that aggressor is not the best thing for your game plan, because those extra cards in the sideline were able to punish the other Bleach player as well. So it was a very good showcase, and I'm very like, and that's the thing. Mirror matches are very technical. You have to know your way around them.
Yep. And then One Punch Man, we saw a yellow versus yellow showdown, but Saitama versus and Genos versus the Esper sisters. Again, for me, really interesting to see that the Esper sisters usually wants to be this big combo heavy deck and like that one big flashy play. And they honestly just did a more of recognizing that they were the aggressor. Their opponent wasn't able to set up much of a board because the Saitamas, got rested, went back to the deck. The Saitama went back to the energy line and just opened up these pockets of victory for them to climb through. And then for Code Geass, T-Mac, run us through one last time for the Lancelot match.
Oh man, that was a masterclass. I love seeing Lancelot played like that. And that's just the strength of it, like Code Geass on its own. Like all of that in their own right are very, very strong. But the masterclass in Lancelot, just being able to show people, yes, purple CG is a very strong deck. It is one of the best decks in our game right now. But you that doesn't mean you won't be able to get past it. Like we saw, like we didn't see a lot of Gurns there. We saw Lancelot just going in for these 6 costs, just getting that damage and being the aggressor when usually purple CG is the aggressor. So it was just a very nice thing to see and showcase that, hey, decks are strong, decks are good, but that doesn't mean your deck it can get counted out. So it was very nice to see.
Yeah, and I'm very excited because this is just a small taste of what's to come for Union Arena, right? These are just the large scale, rare battles, but very soon, fingers crossed, right? We'll get some more official announcements about regionals. We know that there's a world championship confirmed, and it sounds like from the last Bandai Card Games Fest, it will just be whatever the latest simultaneous release will be like the format for World. So that's really excited. And of course, I am very much looking forward to more Union Arena matches in the future. So on behalf of myself and T-Mac, and of course for CoreTCG for hosting this wonderful event, thanks everybody for sticking around to the stream. And we hope to see you in a future Union Arena regional. Until then, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you next time.